Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com and the Pewter Report podcast. It is a Tuesday edition of the show. Want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. We got a very fun topic to get into because the Bucs, it sounds like, are targeting edge rushers early in this year's draft. Maybe not round one necessarily, maybe so. We'll get into all of that and some of the latest news that has pertained to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, most notably some top 30 visits of a couple different players on both sides of the football that the Bucs might be interested in. So I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the man of PewterReport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. Scott, how are you doing this afternoon? Are you ready to talk some Bucs football?
Yes, I am. It's a defensive day. It's always fun. I'm throwing my mic cord everywhere here. I'm excited. This is going to be the best Pewter Report podcast we've ever done. We're like a minute and 20 seconds into it. Already feels like it's a winner, Matt. We're talking edge rushers today. We've had a defensive tackle come in the building today in a top 30 visit, and another edge rusher. Holy smokes. I mean, I don't say this is a holiday, but it feels like a holiday today.
It's definitely going to be a holiday for head coach Todd Bowles. There's no disguising he's a defensive guy. That's how he made his bones in this league, formerly the defensive coordinator of the Buccaneers before taking over last season when Bruce Arians decided to step down, as he said, succession, which is fitting because the show is currently airing on HBO at the moment.
Right.
But yeah, edge rusher is a overall bit of a hot topic when it comes to the Buccaneers, just based on what they have going on at the moment with edge rusher with Tryon-Shoyinka and re-signing Anthony Nelson, and of course the injury to Shaq Barrett. We'll talk about all of that, but let's get to the top 30 news first.
Yeah,
Scott. The most recent one, obviously, we just about to put it up. We put it up on PewterReport.com. One of them is a center. From Oklahoma, offensive lineman Chris Murray. He visited with the Bucs on Monday. And then today, on Tuesday, someone that we've been familiar with, most notably watching him at the Senior Bowl, Double A, we'll call him, from Northwestern, an interior defensive tackle.
Adetomiwa Adebaware. Okay? Adetomiwa Adebaware. I've been practicing.
Good.
So, yeah, he's the latest guy to come in for a top 30 visit. I'm dropping the story here that you wrote, Matt, into the chat. So be sure to check that out. The Buccaneers had Adebaware in for a visit. The funny thing is at 6'2", 282 pounds. I know he played defensive tackle inside at the Senior Bowl, and I think for a 4-3 one gap penetrating team, I think he could play inside, but he's super strong. He's very fast. He timed extremely well. He had a 4.49 in the 40-yard dash at 282 pounds. With all due respect, I know that Nolan Smith, the Georgia edge rusher, outside linebacker who was in town yesterday, visiting the Bucs on a top 30 visit, he ran a 4.39, but that was at 238 pounds, I believe. Okay, that's not as impressive as Adebaware running a 4.49 at 282 pounds. And he had a 37.5-inch vertical, a 10.5-foot broad jump, 27 bench reps, 225 pounds. The testing just validates the explosiveness that this guy has. Now, I'm a little about the production, but I'm telling you, I think there's a place for Adebaware in the Bucs defense. I don't necessarily believe it's as an early down run defender inside a defensive tackle. I'm not saying he can't do it, but the way this guy's frame is, he's got a very tiny waist and very tiny hips. He's rocked up. He's a very muscular guy, but you can see how lean he is. And he doesn't have that 6'6" length that Logan Hall has, where you can say, "Oh, put on 15 pounds, Matt." This guy, I think if he hits 290 pounds, that might be as big as he is. And at 6'2", you're looking at a guy who's as tall as, say, Nacho was, Raheem Nunez-Roches, who's now with the Giants. So I'm not going to rule him out as an edge rusher, Matt. You look at him at 282 pounds. You've got some longer, leaner guys in Carl Nassib, who's a free agent, and Anthony Nelson at 275. We're talking a 7-pound differential, but a shorter, more compact frame at 6'2", rather than 6'7" like Nelson is and 6'6" like Carl Nassib is. So I wouldn't write this guy off as an edge rusher candidate in Tampa with the position flexibility to go inside as a nickel rusher as a defensive tackle. I just think that there's some clay that you can mold here with this guy, but as a down in, down out, 3-down lineman, Todd Bowles type defensive tackle, I just don't see it.
Yeah, because one of the things that he kind of struggles with is dealing with double teams, where if you're going to line up as an interior defensive lineman, you're obviously going to have a lot more trouble there than versus on the outside. Some of his stats. So he played 4 years at Northwestern, but his sophomore, junior, and senior years, like when he really got playing time and played in pretty much every single game. He had 97 tackles, 24 and a half tackles for loss, 12 and a half sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and an interception to go with that as well. So, yeah, I mean, I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl thinking, man, this guy is really fast, like pretty fast for a D lineman. And then I started like looking him up more and I'm like, oh, damn, like he plays more edge rusher than anything else. And even, PFF, the Draft Network, a lot of different draft sites, they have him, as an edge rusher. And I think it's interesting when you compare it to the Bucs outside linebacker room at the moment. You have the lanky guys like you talked about with Anthony Nelson, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, while physically insane, also has that length. Shaq Barrett is much more on the
6'1", 6'2". He's same height as Double A here.
Exactly. Yeah, on the shorter side. And then Cam Gill, we'll see if he makes the team, but we know his story. Small, but got that speed. So you got the two lanky guys, and we'll see if the Bucs want to pair another shorter guy to kind of go with Shaq Barrett. I mean, we know Todd Bowles loves speed. Speed is super important. That's why they drafted Logan Hall last year. One, because of his height, but also the quick first step that he brought. I just remember thinking about how we were going into the season with JTS, Logan Hall, some of the other guys on the defensive line. It's like, all right, these guys could be playing center in basketball, just swatting all these shots. Like that was a big thing that the Bucs wanted to combat. Because remember, when the Bucs were stopping the run left and right, teams were throwing short on them. So it was like, all right, let's get those hands up. Let's knock some of that down. Then the run game faltered a little bit more last year. So not that the Bucs are getting back to basics, but they want speed on the D line. They have speed at linebacker with Devin White. They have speed with like Jamel Dean and Antoine Winfield Jr. At defensive back and corner and safety, respectively. So I'm all about speed. I think it'd be interesting to get him in there. Does have a couple different pass rushing moves, solid with his leverage overall. You can't teach height, though, and that's obviously something that is a bit concerning, but interesting prospect.
And you know what? That's why going to the Senior Bowl and looking at these guys, standing right next to him, right? Like when I had a chance to interview Carl Brooks, who was very similar to Adebaware. He was an edge rusher at between 280 and 300 pounds at Bowling Green. But they moved him inside. And you know what? I have to give the Senior Bowl a lot of credit. Thomas Incoom, who was an edge rusher at Central Michigan, moved inside. Yaya Diaby, who at 270, 275 pounds, was an edge rusher at Louisville. They moved him inside to give these guys a look to see for teams that maybe don't want a 270, 280 pound, 300 pound edge rusher. What can they do inside? Can they play defensive tackle? And you looked at a guy like Carl Brooks at 304 at the Senior Bowl, and you're like, yeah, you're a defensive tackle. You look like it. You act like it. You show it on the field in practice. You can see it. But then you look at a guy like Double A, who is not built like an NFL defensive tackle, and you see some of these guys, Kalijah Kancey, another one from Pitt. I like Double A better than I do Kancey, especially for this defense because he has the ability to play some outside for you. And, it's important to get these guys in the building. It's important to take a look. It's important to get Nolan Smith from Georgia in the building at 6'2", 238 and say, are you big enough to play on the outside and do some of these things and talk to them and have that face-to-face and kind of size these dudes up? Because trust me, players look bigger and sometimes they look a little smaller when you're watching college football, whether
Mhm.
it's from a press box, whether it's from the stands, or whether it's on TV. But when you see these guys in person in your building or on the sidelines at a Senior Bowl practice, it you get a better feel for their physical composition, and can they put on some weight? Can they lose some weight? Those types of things.
That's what kind of concerns me a little bit is the fact that like we're still talking about Logan Hall putting on more weight and how he's going to look next season. So as Shaggy says, AA got that LB build. But yeah, I mean Northwestern, they play in the Big Ten, so he's obviously going up against pretty good competition. But you look at Northwestern compared to the Titans of the Big Ten and obviously the top teams in the SEC as well. And you're like, all right, well, can this guy hang with the big boys really? And
Yeah,
I thought he really did at the Senior Bowl.
he
And
really did. I mean,
yeah,
he really stood out. I think he and Carl Brooks were the two, and also Yaya Diaby. Those three guys were
yes,
the most
love Yaya.
explosive players that I saw on a practice to practice basis. And so, you know what? I'm not going to doubt Todd Bowles for figuring out a way to maybe use a player like Adebawari, because he does have some position flexibility. You can't really say that with a guy like Nolan Smith, who is at 6'2", 238. He is smaller than Cam Gill, and he is an outside linebacker, and that's it, right? I don't
Yeah.
think you want to make him an inside linebacker because he just doesn't have the film or the experience for that. And we'll talk about the edge rushers a little bit later, but I'm just telling you, having a guy like Adebawari and Nolan Smith in the building, and there's going to be some others, and there have been some others, I'm sure, the outside linebackers, because Matt, they interviewed at the combine formally Will McDonald from Iowa State, Felix
Mhm.
Enodike-Ozama from Kansas State, Isaiah McGuire from Missouri, Derick Hall from
Auburn.
Auburn, and Yaya Diaby from Louisville. That's a lot of positions to use those formal visits on. A lot of players at one position, and it screams to me, and I've not heard any confirmation from the team, but maybe I've heard some silence, which sometimes you got to interpret things. I just have to wonder that this team is extremely concerned about Shaq Barrett. I could be wrong, but we don't have a timetable about if he's going to be ready for training camp. If he's going to be ready for OTAs, probably not. But is he going to be ready to at the start of camp? Is he going to be ready sometime in camp? Will he play in the preseason? This is a guy they're paying $17 million who has a cap hit of over $21 million this year, and who is not the biggest guy in the world. His game is completely predicated on get off, not even speed so much, Matt. This was an undrafted free agent because he's 6'1", 6'2", 250 pounds, and didn't blaze a fast 40-yard dash time. Not that that's anything really when it comes to edge rushers. Look at Terrell Suggs, one of the slowest 40-yard dash times, still drafted in the first round, Hall of Fame career, right? I mean, he had
Absolutely.
24 sacks at Arizona State, I think running like a 4.7 something, 4.8 in the 40-yard dash, whatever it was. So I'm just saying, Shaq Barrett's calling card is his get off, timing the snap, that explosion, that quickness off the ball, to be able to take the first step before the tackle moves. And an Achilles tendon injury can rob you of that. And that is really his bread and butter. And if he doesn't have that quick burst off the ball, I'm just saying it right now, Shaq Barrett is average. And that's scary for the Buccaneers heading into 2023.
I won't speak for Jason Light in the front office. I'm only speaking for myself. I'm scared about the proposition for Shaq Barrett going into next season. I'm probably
I am
more
too.
scared for just the overall outlook at outside linebacker for the Bucs heading into next season.
Yeah.
I mean, starting with Shaq Barrett, to your point, he predicates his entire game off of speed. That's why you see him jump off sides half the time. And,
Right.
sometimes it's annoying if it's a 3rd and 3 and you give the offense an automatic first down. That'll happen from time to time, but I think Bucs fans would mostly sign up for that when you get the 19.5 sack season, the
Right.
double-digit sack season from 2 years ago that got him another Pro Bowl. And Shaq very much is a chess player or a boxer when he's out there. I mean, he talks about his arsenal of moves that he has, or for a boxer, it's like a jab, it's an undercut, whatever
Yep.
you want to call
Yep.
it. But he might not get there on the first 5 pass rushing opportunities on third down, but he's setting you up for like the big strip sack. And
Right.
Shaq, I think what he does, I mean, obviously his speed, but what he uses with that speed where he'll get the first step and automatically he's ripping or swimming. He's getting that hand placement because the offensive tackle is so worried about his speed in that moment. It's almost
Right.
like a step and hand placement combo
Yeah.
all at once. And if Shaq doesn't have that speed, if offensive linemen know that they don't, you obviously want to get a good push or a good first step every single time as a lineman.
Yeah.
But if you know that you can survive with another half second because of Shaq Barrett, Shaq doesn't really out-muscle anybody. He's
Right.
never going to really throw his weight around, throw his strength
Yeah.
around because he is that smaller size guy. And I think
Right.
that sometimes that's why you've seen him, he's had some awesome games. Like he had a hat trick in the playoffs.
Mhm.
But there are times like he'll go up against the Saints, and the Saints have bigger offensive tackles.
Same with the Rams too.
And
right?
the Rams, and they swallow Shaq up.
Yeah.
And I'm not really trying to dismiss Shaq Barrett because he's
Right.
one of the best free agent signings that Jason Licht and the entire Buccaneers organization has ever
Yeah.
had. But there are clear flaws in his game. And when he can't rely on his best suit, which
Yeah.
is his speed and his diversity of pass rushing moves,
Right.
that is a major concern. And then you look at the rest of the outside linebacker room. I think it's great that Anthony Nelson is back, but how much better can Anthony Nelson get? That's
Right.
what my concern is with Anthony Nelson. I think he's
Yeah.
a solid player. I think he's great for the role that
Yeah.
he's in, and he obviously got more starting opportunities
Right.
towards the end of the year.
He kind of tops out at 5.5 sacks. Though,
Exactly.
Right? That's the thing. And with JTS, he's topped out at 4 these last 2 years. All the physical tools in the world, but I mean, he's got everything except the production, and you got to be able to close the deal, right? It's like having a way with words in sales, right? And let's say you're charismatic, you're good looking, and you have product knowledge, but you just can't close. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? It's like did you get the sale? Did you make the sale? Right? That's what it is. It's you can be friendly, you can be nice, you can be gregarious and pleasant to deal with, and have give your people a great experience that you're dealing with customer relation wise. But if you don't ask for the sale and close the deal, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And that's kind of the thing with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka here. When you got a guy that misses as many or more sacks than he gets, it's not good enough, especially if you're talking about a guy that you spent a first round draft pick on. And the team is concerned. They're worried because they expected, with much more playing time that he got last year from the edge, that he was going to, I would say double, but they were hoping he would at least double, get to 8, maybe 10 sacks. And he was stuck at 4. And I mean, you saw it, Matt. He and Anthony Nelson played every single friggin' snap for like the last 3 or 4 games of the season because Carl Nassib was out. And of course, Shaq Barrett was out too. And they had to rely on these guys, and they just couldn't seal the deal. So there is some concern. And listen, this is Todd Bowles' side of the ball. This is his baby. The pass rush, the blitz packages, those types of things. He's concerned. He does not want. This is the first year where an outside linebacker in any stop, whether it's the Jets, whether it's the Cardinals, whether it's the Buccaneers, that an outside linebacker did not lead the team in sacks. You had a nose tackle. Vita Vea lead your team in sacks with 6.5. Todd Bowles will be damned if he's going to let that happen again. That's why you're seeing a lot of these edge rushers, and Nolan Smith was the latest today to come into the mix of one Buccaneer place and have a top 30 interview. Now we'll get to these guys in just a minute in terms of breaking them down and kind of going through some of the top guys that they've met with either at the combine or in these top 30 visits. But Matt, whether I'm picking first overall, whether I'm picking 19th overall, I mean, the number 1 draft pick has got to be a can of Celsius, does it not?
Oh, it absolutely has to be. You have 7 essential vitamins, no crash, no post jitters from energy drinks that you might get with some other products. Make sure you check out their new flavors. You got the Fantasy Vibe, sparkling lemon lime as well. Can't go wrong with any of the vibes either. You got the tropical and Arctic vibes, the peach vibe as well. I mean, I would trade down for even more picks because you can get so many different flavors of Celsius energy drinks. Can't go wrong with the strawberry lemonade as well, the sparkling watermelon, ton of different flavors to choose from. If you want to find out where to go get a Celsius, go to the store locator on the Celsius website and put in your address or location, and it will let you know where the nearest 7-Eleven, Walmart, Target, convenience store, or your bodega where to find it. We did it while we were in Indy, found it in seconds, which was absolutely awesome.
Yep.
And then when you realize that you love Celsius and you want more, start getting it in bulk. I'd recommend getting the variety pack, because why have one flavor of Celsius when you can have multiple, and variety is the spice of life. Go to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save, and have it sent to your house or apartment every week, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official sponsor of PewterReport.com. Shout out to Big Al saying, I had a fantasy vibe this morning. It tasted great. Saw a couple of other comments in the chat talking about their appreciation for Celsius as well. So thanks, everybody, for supporting Celsius. We're big fans of it. Glad that you like it, too. Scott, there's one more thing I just wanted to say about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka as we're discussing the Bucs edge rushers. I understand the whole argument of, well, his stats say that his QB pressures and his ability to get into the backfield is very high, and that's on a consistent level and the same level as, Anthony Nelson. I like that he gets close, but you know the saying, close but no cigar. You have to finish. You have to get the job done. I mean, it's not just like he's a second away. It's like, oh man, I was so close. It's like he has his arms around the quarterback, and all of a sudden the quarterback escapes. There are different ways of getting pressures and being there a second too late. But when when there's nobody around except you and the quarterback, and you still can't take the quarterback down, that's what's frustrating about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And he can easily prove everybody wrong if he keeps that same pressure rate up, and all of a sudden those the ones that got away turn into sack 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then I will say, all right, JTS, you're the man. You proved a lot of people wrong. But until he gets out of his way and starts taking that next step, I'm going to have my concerns about the overall edge rusher room, like we talked about. And it goes back to, I still don't totally understand it. When Todd Bowles, after the season, was like, I would like more production from my edge rushers. We need more production from outside linebacker. And then they brought Anthony Nelson back. And I'm sure they would like Carl Nassib back as well. We'll see what they do in the draft. But you have the same three guys. I mean, I guess Shaq is under contract and so is JTS, so there's no choices there. But
okay, well, there's one important caveat about Shaq. And Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, I saw there was a question there. When is his fifth-year option up? He's entering year 3 of his contract. And so he'll have 2 more years to play, and then he will have a 5th-year option if the team decides to pick it up. Now, when it comes to Shaq, Josh Capo from Pewter Report just texted me, and I was just getting ready to say this, so it was great timing by Josh. The Buccaneers have not restructured his deal, and there's 2 big contracts that the Bucs can take a look at and create some more salary cap room, because I think they're just under $2 million right now with a little bit of cap room. One of the players they're targeting, we talked about this yesterday. I kind of have it confirmed. Not where I'm going to write about it, but I'll tell you guys about it, is the safety from Seattle, Ryan Neal. The Bucs are trying to land him. So that's going to be the safety that they're going to go after prior to the draft. So we talked about that yesterday. Looks like we were right. They're trying to land him. We'll see if it happens. Could happen today or tomorrow. But that's their latest target in free agency. And that's probably the money that they have available where they're going to use that. But back to Josh's point, there are a couple of players, 3 really, that the Bucs could go to create some cap room. Mike Evans is one. Problem is they'd have to give him a contract extension. He's in the final year of his deal. He already has some voidable years. And it's not bad, Matt, to keep this guy around, right? He's a steady producer, 1,000-yard seasons, right? 9 in a row. He's only 30 years old, still playing at a very high level, averaged 14.6 yards per catch, which was actually an increase for him last year. Touchdowns were down, but I think that's going to change this year. So it makes sense to maybe do Mike, and you can save somewhere between $7 million or so from the cap and giving him a contract extension. However, with Mike, it's probably going to have to come with the pay raise. Right now, Mike is making about $16.5 million per year on average with his deal. Chris Godwin's making 20. Matt, who's the better receiver, Mike Evans or Chris Godwin?
It's close, but Mike Evans.
Okay, so it's fair to say that Mike deserves at least $20 million, right? Okay, well, for a team that's so cap-strapped, and you don't have to pay that this year, but you're going to have to give Mike Evans a raise, right? Which they're going to have to kind of do because they need some more cap room. The other contract you can touch is Shaq Barrett. The problem is this team does not know what the future holds for Shaq Barrett. We saw O.J. Howard struggle mightily coming back from a torn Achilles injury. It's a tough injury to come back from. And the fact that they haven't touched that contract yet lets me and Josh as well, and probably you too, Matt, believe that this team is giving itself some wiggle room. In case he doesn't come back, they can walk away from Shaq Barrett's deal in 2023 with very little salary cap impact. Now, if they reduce this year's cap number and take some of this year's cap money and push it into to next year and the year after that with the prorated bonus, then all you're doing is creating more and more and more dead cap money for future years. And the Bucs are trying to get out from under that this year because they've got like $75 million worth of dead cap space. So right now the Buccaneers are clinging to the fact that they don't want to touch Shaq Barrett's contract. And that's a telling sign that I don't think that they're very confident that he's going to come back. And I think that's why they're looking at possibly drafting an edge rusher in the first round or if not the first, the second. And I think it's going to be edge rusher and offensive tackle or offensive tackle and edge rusher. I don't think that they can afford to necessarily go after a Brian Branch, even if he's there, just because they need to get a solid edge rusher. And we'll take a look at these guys in just a minute or two here. And one more thing too. You mentioned Chris Murray from Oklahoma at the beginning of the show. Mm-hmm. And, he's a day 3 kind of undrafted, guard that will probably move to center. So why in the world would the Buccaneers be burning a top 30 visit on a guy like this? Well, sometimes if a team really likes a player that they may not even draft in the 7th round, they want to have him on a recruiting visit to tell him how much they love him and how much they want him to sign with the Buccaneers. So sometimes the team will do that for guys that aren't first-round picks or even mid-round picks, but guys that are late day 3 priority free agent types so they can kind of build a relationship there. Meet the offensive line coaches, meet the head coach, the general manager. So if Chris Murray goes undrafted in the Buccaneers call, he's got a little bit of a rapport. He knows the lay of the land. He's met some people. There's a bit of a connection there. And the fact that they have talked to several centers, Joe, I think it's Tripman. Yeah. From Wisconsin.
Tippmann. Yeah.
Tippmann.
He's got the great hair. Yeah.
Yeah. The mullet. Yeah. Alex Forsythe from Oregon, Juice Scruggs from Penn State. The fact that they're sniffing around some centers and you've got Robert Hainsey on the roster already, you've got the highest paid center in the game in Ryan Jensen, who will be, I believe, 33 this year, and Nick Leverett. I just wonder how confident this team is in Ryan Jensen's recovery, because he came back to play in that Cowboys game. If you look at the tape, it was kind of ugly. I know he was out there trying, and it was a remarkable comeback. But is he all the way back? Is he going to get back to that Pro Bowl level this year? You're paying Ryan Jensen a king's ransom as the highest paid center at age 32, going to be 33. And I'm wondering, too, if the Buccaneers are trying to hedge their bets a little bit with Jensen, like they are with Barrett.
It's a fair concern. I'm willing to give Jensen more benefit of the doubt, merely for the fact that he already went through the recovery.
Yes.
And while there's still recovery to go, he's going to have a full training camp. Whereas Shaq, he's still recovering. I mean, I remember at the Combine, we asked about the progress of Shaq, and it was kind of vague. It was, he is where he needs to be. That doesn't mean he's going to be ready by training camp. He might not be ready until November for all we know, but he is where he needs to be. isn't the most comforting of signs. Where Jensen, will be
Yeah.
ready by OTAs and training camp. I'm curious though, Scott,
Yeah.
who would you be more concerned about, Shaq Barrett or Ryan Jensen?
Shaq Barrett, just because, like you said, I think that's a fair point. We've seen Ryan Jensen at least come back and take the field, right, and hold his own. It wasn't pretty, right, but he was out there and probably rushed back a little bit, right? They needed him to play because you didn't have Nick Leverett out there, right? So they needed him to play in that game. If Nick Leverett is 100% healthy, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't start. Maybe he doesn't play. I don't know, but they needed him, and he certainly did. So let's take a look at some of these edge rushers now, and let's start with the guy that really has a first round grade. He was in the building today or yesterday, and that's Nolan Smith from Georgia. Now I watch an awful lot of Georgia games. I probably have seen 90% of the Georgia games over the last 3 years, watching them live on television, and I'll go back and watch some of them just to hone in on some of these draft prospects. I want to buy into Nolan Smith, and I'm having a really, really hard time doing it because of the lack of production. Right. All the measurables are there. The ability is there. I know that they rotate their players, but I'm telling you right now, he's had enough opportunity to produce more than he has. And not just that, sometimes it's who are you getting your sacks against? And let's take a look at Nolan Smith's career here first, and we'll go through some of the guys that they've met formally with here. So 11.5 sacks. That's a huge concern for a 4-year player. And you can see there in 2019, 2.5 sacks, 2.5 sacks, 3.5 sacks, 3 sacks. Okay, now to be fair, he injured his pec against the Florida Gators and missed just a little bit less than half the season for his final year. Okay. There's still a concern there for a team that is trying to coax more sacks out of JTS. I think this team wants a more proven pass rusher, a guy with production. 11.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, fumble recovery, interception, block punt. He's got all the ability in the world. I will say this about Georgia, and I'm a huge Georgia Bulldog fan. My wife, Ashley, is from Georgia, so Georgia's my number 2 team after Kansas State. I watch a ton of Georgia, so I'm not trying to throw any shade against the 2-time national champions. But Matt, if you go back and look at USC with Lendale White and Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart, this might be a little bit before your time. You're younger than me, but I'm just saying.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Like electrifying guy in college football. But I remember the Lendale White.
It was I think Steve Smith was a wide receiver. It was a star-studded, Trojans offense. It was the equivalent of the Georgia defense. But if you took the parts away from the whole, Matt Leinart was not the quarterback without Reggie Bush, right? Reggie Bush and Lendale White. Reggie Bush never lived up to the expectations. Lendale White certainly didn't either, right? And so none of those USC guys, and some of them were first-round picks, of course, but they never lived up to the draft billing because they were better together. And I think that's what we're going to see with some of these guys like Trayvon Walker and Nolan Smith and some of these, even Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I don't know that they're going to have the individual success that's going to match their draft billing. And you look at these sacks here. Murray State, 1.5 sacks. Missouri, it's a bad Missouri team. Arkansas, 1.5 sacks. 1 sack against Missouri. Had a sack against Clemson. Half a sack against South Carolina. Couple, what I want to term quality sacks against Michigan and Alabama in the playoffs there. Okay, fine. Kent State, Missouri, Vanderbilt. I'm just saying, where are the sacks against, Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, Kentucky, some of the upper echelon teams in the SEC, right? LSU, where are the sacks, right? So I'm just a little concerned that even though the sack production isn't there with 11.5 sacks, I mean, more than half those sacks are against kind of chump teams, right? Kent State, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Murray State. I don't know. You got 11.5 sacks. 3 of them are against Missouri. You got 1.5 against Murray State, Kent State. I want to see good on good. I want to see you going up against a future first round left tackle, and let's see you beat that guy to get down a quarterback, right? So sacks are individual plays. I understand he's got some pressures. I understand his pressure rate is okay. If he was all that, he would be on the field more and he would have produced more, right? And I just don't think right now, when this team, the Buccaneers, are looking for a player to get to the quarterback and get him on the ground, that this guy is enough, especially at 6'2", 238. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, and sometimes numbers don't always tell the story, but I would say, to the point with with the lack of production, how many times do we see a prospect, especially like an edge rusher, that didn't really have production in college, all of a sudden turn into Superman or whoever your favorite superhero is? How many times do they all of a sudden turn into like the next big thing at the college level? Usually, especially at edge rusher, you're already doing it at college, and then you just
Shaq Barrett, he's an outlier,
Yeah, well, and Shaq's, that's the crazy exception to the story. I'm even
Yes,
more talking
correct.
about guys that you love their physical traits, or you love this, and they end up going in the first 3 rounds based on potential. We talk about that a lot with quarterbacks, but not necessarily the case with edge rusher. And there are things to like about Nolan Smith. He's very quick off the edge, pretty good, dip and everything like that. The torn pec, obviously, honestly, I should say, concerns me. That's obviously a tough injury, and obviously, you're coming back from it and everything. And well, is that, it more concerns me? Is that a sign of like he's going to get injured again at the NFL level? And then also, like, as a power rusher, at times doesn't always get to the quarterback at the timely manner that it's needed. I just don't think right now the Bucs can afford to take a guy that doesn't already have, like, bring a little bit more to the table. If you get what I'm
agree.
saying. Like, if JTS is already, there's a lot of vagueness about outside linebacker, specifically on the Bucs, and Nolan Smith to me is kind of vague as well. So I'm not in love with the idea of Nolan Smith, but the Bucs brought him in, so maybe they brought him in to ask him about another Georgia player. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. So the second guy we're going to go to is Derick Hall, because I've talked to a lot of kind of people in the draft community, and actually we're not. We're going to go to Will McDonald next, because I believe he is probably a guy that is going to be a potential late first, early second round player. And listen, I saw plenty of Will McDonald. I am ready for this guy who played 5 years at Iowa State to get the hell out of the Big 12. Right? He tormented Kansas State, and not just K-State, but a lot of teams. So this is what he was able to do: 34 career sacks, 10 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, 7 pass breakups. Okay, so this is his career there. He was a 5-year, COVID year super senior. 1 sack. His first sack was against TCU. Very limited playing time in 2018. He was still a backup in 2019. 6 sacks. You can see what he did there. TCU, Texas, 2 against a pretty okay K-State team at that time. 10.5 sacks, really kind of burst on the scene in 2020. Half a sack against Oklahoma, a sack against K-State, a sack against Oklahoma, because they played in the Big 12 championship game again, and then a sack against Oregon. 11.5 sacks. So this guy's a proven producer. Back-to-back double-digit sack seasons for him. Sack against Baylor, 2 more against K-State, and he can get some in bunches, right? Oklahoma State, 2 sacks, 2.5 sacks against Texas, another half sack against Oklahoma, a sack against TCU. Last year, the sacks were down. The thing that he brings to the table is, even though he's 6'3", 238, similar size to Nolan Turner, he's got incredibly long arms. He's got a wingspan that's close to somebody who's like 6'8", 6'9". So he's got incredibly long arms. He's got all the proven pass rush moves that you need. He is polished as can be. He was a down in, down out player, unlike Nolan Smith, who was a kind of a wave guy, because there's so much talent at Georgia. They have to rotate all of the young freshmen and sophomores in there. But Will McDonald stayed on the field. Now, he was not just a 3-4 outside linebacker, Matt, and I watched a ton of Iowa State games being a Big 12 guy. He would line up over the tackle as one of the 3 down linemen, okay? And really kind of get in there, caused some havoc. They were sacking Caleb Williams when he was at Oklahoma. And the one thing that Jason Licht really likes about defensive linemen, and we'll call outside linebackers because they're on the defensive line, especially in nickel pass rush situations. What he likes about them is the ability to break up passes. Right? This guy's got 7 pass breakups. That's more than any of the guys that we're going to talk about today. And he got double teamed an awful lot last year, and Iowa State had a down year. They lost some talent to the NFL. He decided to play one more year, and probably should have come out after the 2021 season. Didn't hurt his draft stock because he's so productive, but the sack numbers fell. You can see he tagged us again twice at K-State.
He killed Kansas State. I mean,
he
2
killed
sacks
us.
2019,
Oh,
one
yeah.
2020, and then 2.
I want to say out of his
in the
10
overlast
forced
year.
fumbles, 10 forced fumbles, he got 4 or 5 of those against K-State. And we actually have an offensive line that returns all of its starters from last year. And we're going to have at least 2 guys that are legit pro prospects, probably day 2 guys. So he's doing it against really good competition. He's gone up against Anton Harrison at Oklahoma. I mean, there's a lot of Steve Avila at TCU. There's a lot of quality offensive linemen he's gone up against. And the resume speaks for itself. This guy is a prototypical 3-4 Todd Bowles, long pass rushing guy with speed. And he is probably in consideration at 19, or the Bucs could trade down and see if they could get him later in the first round. He is, I believe, to be one of the guys they're really interested in.
I would say outside of your guy from Kansas State, I probably enjoyed watching Will McDonald's tape.
He's a beast.
The most. I mean,
Yes.
the big moment sacks. I mean, he made some big plays against it was 2021, but against Iowa. And I know like Iowa State, maybe not for everyone is a big deal, but
it's
for those
huge,
2 teams, that's a huge deal. You know, that is
it's for the Cy-Hawk Trophy. It's big. Yeah,
I mean, he clobbers quarterbacks when he's out there, and and that's why you see all the forced fumbles. You mentioned the speed, but I think his upper body strength too, it kind of goes a little bit under the radar because he is kind of he's not like the muscular statue, kind of like Derick Hall is, or we've seen with Tryon-Shoyinka. He's more of a slim fit type of dude. But I mean, there are times that he comes around the edge and the linemen are holding him on the play. And he does everything that Tryon-Shoyinka didn't do, which is like he'd go with one arm and still wrap around the quarterback and either knock the ball loose or at least hold him and wrap him up and take him to the ground so that the quarterback's not getting out of there. The production is off the charts. He's a really exciting player to watch, gets off well, and he lined up on both sides of the ball. You mentioned lining up like over center, which obviously is music to Todd Bowles' ears, but I like the fact that he lined up on both sides of the line of scrimmage as well. That goes a long way for the versatility and everything that Todd Bowles likes. So I'm in on Will McDonald. I think it'd be great if they got him there, or they want to move him back. That's fine.
I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't mind this team getting Felix Anaduke from Kansas State on the Buccaneers. I like Felix. I'm telling you right now, Will McDonald is the better prospect. And I'm taking my purple glasses off, and I'm being completely honest and transparent. Will McDonald is the better player. He's a better athlete than Felix is. And that's why we're going to skip over Felix and go to the next guy who I think is on the Bucs board as an early to mid-second round guy, and that's Derick Hall. And again, another player the Bucs interviewed at the Combine with a formal interview. And Matt, I think Jason Light's got a thing for Auburn players, don't you?
Does he? Does he?
Carlton Davis,
Jamel Dean,
KJ Britt. Also, Peyton Barber was an Auburn War Eagle Tiger as well. So here's the thing with Derick Hall. He is battle tested in the SEC and a 4-year player, but really didn't play. He wasn't a true starter until the last 2 years. So did not get a sack the first year, had 4 sacks as a sophomore, 2 against LSU, 2 against Mississippi State. I like guys that can get sacks in bunches because it tells me they have the ability to take over a game. It's not a fluke when you get, sometimes it can be a fluke when you get 1. When you're getting 2, 2.5, 3, it means you're whipping that dude's ass in front of you. And you can catch fire and get some sacks in bunches. So here's a guy that did what Nolan Smith didn't do. 2 sacks against LSU, 2 against Mississippi State, 3 against Alabama. I'll say that again. 3 against Alabama. That's Bryce Young. 2 sacks against Mississippi State, 2 against Missouri, right? 19 and a half career sacks, 5 forced fumbles. He can get the ball out, a fumble recovery, and interception. This is a guy that, as you see, Matt, is not allergic to the weight room, right?
No.
He is a chiseled dude who ran I believe a 4.53 at the combine, and he gets the ball out, forces fumbles. That's something the Buccaneers desperately need. They need to create more takeaways, and he is just a big time physical hitter that's got some speed, some juice off the edge. He's kind of a nasty player. I think this team does need some nasty.
Agreed.
And I like the demeanor with which he brings it, and I liked what he said at the combine, just in terms of him being a physical, tough, hard-nosed player. And again, I like the production. 9 sacks. It tells me you can have a dominant season. 6.5 sacks. When you get a little bit more attention, more notoriety, and Auburn didn't have a great year last year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So take those numbers with a grain of salt. But I like Derick Hall better than I like Nolan Smith. And this is a guy that maybe the Buccaneers, if they trade down into the second round, or if they trade up into the second to get him, I'm okay with, because I think this guy can real play.
When you look at the Bucs defense, they have attitude, but they have it at linebacker. They have it at corner. Carlton Davis has attitude. Antoine Winfield Jr. is one of the best players at safety at his position in the NFL. But on the defensive line and edge rusher, I don't know if the Bucs necessarily have attitude. Like Vita Vea is a great player, but he's not an in-your-face type of guy. He's more of
nice
a
guy,
lead by example, nice guy. Shaq Barrett, much more of a finesse type of player. JTS,
nice guy.
Anthony Nelson, a good old Midwest farm boy.
Nice guy.
Yeah, I think the Bucs need.
Where's that Ndamukong Suh, Matt? Where's that JPP? Where's that Warren Sapp, that fire-breathing ass kicker up front that you need to help set the tempo and set the tone?
You couldn't have said it any better. A fire-breathing ass kicker. And I think with Hall, that physicality, that nastiness in your face, I think is really intriguing for this Bucs pass rushing room. Bring in that physicality, and JTS is physical. Anthony Nelson has physical traits to him, but I think with Hall, it's a little bit different, and he's still developing as a pass rusher. He's pretty solid as a run stopper. Hasn't fully reached his potential going after the quarterback. Now, there is the gamble of, does he ever reach that potential? But there's going to be a gamble with all of these prospects in the NFL, with the exception of 2 or 3 that go early in the draft. So I mean, I want them to bring in different types of players that are already that they don't have on the defensive line. We've seen enough tall guys. We've seen enough lanky guys. Bring in someone new, different. As Nathan Elliott says, find a monster. Yeah, find a monster
for real.
Yeah, great comment, Nathan.
So another guy too. For everyone out there screaming, "Gosh, do not draft an edge rusher early. They're a dime a dozen. This is a deep draft." Get a offensive tackle in the first round. Okay, well, that's fine, but Will McDonald's not going to be there at 50. I doubt Derick Hall will be there at 50. Now, this guy might be at 50, and this is why Todd Bowles was out there at Kansas State on Friday at the Kansas State Pro Day, looking at not just him, but also Julius Brents, the monster 6'3" pterodactyl corner, Deuce Vaughn, the running back, and Malik Knowles. Those are some draftable Wildcats. But Felix Anudike-Uzomah could be there with the Buccaneers. We had him in our second round in one of our mock drafts on Pewter Report. In his 2 years as a starter, now he had 1 sack in 2019. And God, I think he played 15 plays. And matter of fact, his first career play as a redshirt freshman was against KU. His very first play, he got a sack. So they probably should have played him more, but they didn't. So the next year, he's a full-time starter. Boom, 11 sacks. And again, a guy that can get sacks in bunches. 3 sacks against Southern Illinois, 4 sacks against Max Duggan from TCU, 3 sacks against Texas Tech, plus he had a safety. 20 and a half career sacks, essentially in 2 years. So this is a guy that really, kind of like Derick Hall, 19 and a half sacks, but Hall got some of those sacks in 3 years. Felix really got them in 2, and was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year this past year in 2021, helping K-State win the Big 12 championship, where he also had another sack against Max Duggan in that game. 8 forced fumbles. He is very much like Will McDonald. He will get the ball out. This is a player that has got a tremendous amount of bend, played exactly like Felix and Will McDonald, pretty much the same type of defense, a 3-4 front, but not just a stand-up outside linebacker like he will play in Todd Bowles' scheme. He, along with McDonald, Matt, played over the tackle, sometimes even in the B gap as a kind of a 4-eye defensive lineman, as a 3-down defensive lineman rather than an edge rusher. So he's used to getting in there, taking on double teams, banging away, and stuffing the run. He had a safety against Texas Tech on an amazing run play. So the thing is, he's not the athlete that Nolan Smith is. He's not the athlete Derick Hall is. He's not the athlete Will McDonald is. He didn't run the 40-yard dash at the combine. He said he had a foot injury. He didn't run it at his pro day. He said he had a groin injury. Usually when you don't run, Matt, it means you don't want that time known because it's not real fast. So fine, whatever. The tape doesn't lie. But this is a probably late second round / early third round guy. Don't believe the hype. He's not a first round candidate. He's probably not in the top 40 picks. He is a maybe mid, probably late second round and an early third round guy. But Felix brings a lot of intensity. He is a tireless guy. He brings some swagger. They call him King Felix at K-State. And he showed up big in some big games. It can turn the corner, and he always has those long arms out ready to force fumbles. I wouldn't mind if Will McDonald, Derick Hall, or Felix Anudike-Uzomah would become a Buccaneer, Matt.
I almost felt when I was watching him, if he was going after the quarterback. Now, that picture you just had up, he's to the back of the quarterback. But I almost felt like he would almost target the football before he even was going after the quarterback, which is obviously a good trait, but an important for the Bucs that did not get many strip sacks last year. I remember one of the fumbles they recovered from the quarterback. It was just like a botched snap or whatever it was. Right. It wasn't even a play that the Bucs really forced. But I enjoyed watching his tape, like I said earlier. Not the quickest guy, but has a little more of that defensive end / edge rusher build that I kind of like seeing.
Yeah, and he's 255, right? He's 12 pounds heavier than Will McDonald, but he's not the athlete McDonald is. But he's still a good athlete. It's just McDonald is a really damn good athlete.
Yeah, but that's where, and McDonald, we were praising him for, or at least I was, for his, his upper body strength. And if he can prove that against offensive tackles, then all right, great. And then you found an awesome product there. But I feel with Anudike-Uzomah, you have a better shot just going head to head with like a bigger offensive tackle that might swallow you up or might just engulf McDonald. I feel like with Felix, you'd have a better chance of like overall kind of attacking that type of obstacle in front of him. But yeah, exciting player. When you take the ball away, I mean, that immediately jumps out to me because it's obviously number one on the Bucs radar is getting those turnovers. So yeah, I'm for it.
So the other guy is Isaiah McGuire, probably a day 3 guy. There's a chance he's maybe a late 3rd round pick, probably a 4th round pick. So if the Buccaneers address some other needs early, Matt, such as say offensive tackle in the 1st round, safety in the 2nd, maybe they wait until the 3rd round. They miss on Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Isaiah McGuire is a player that they could get a bigger guy, about 266 pounds. So he's way bigger than Nolan Smith and McDonald, and he's bigger than Felix Anudike-Uzomah. 6'5". He's probably not as lean as Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, probably a little bit more muscle mass there. And you can see, again, the production here. 17.5 sacks, was a 2-year starter at Missouri. He was a senior, so that he played at the Senior Bowl. 4 forced fumbles. Not the guy that's going to take the ball away as much as Felix or Will at Iowa State and K-State, but this guy can also get the job done. Look at the production: a sack against Tennessee, Mississippi State. All these guys have sacks against Central Michigan and Louisiana Tech, etc. He had a sack against K-State, a sack against Auburn, 2 sacks against South Carolina, a pair of sacks against Mississippi State his sophomore year, and then ended his senior year with 2 sacks against Arkansas. So he can get some sacks in bunches as well. Not as explosive, not as quick as Nolan Smith, Will McDonald, Derick Hall, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, but Isaiah McGuire is a player that can win with power and has enough length to really kind of reach around the tackle, grab the quarterback for a sack, knock the ball away, things like that.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were talking about with just overall having a physical type of player that maybe the Bucs don't necessarily have. I don't worry as much about a guy that was on a team that didn't always perform as well, and obviously Missouri, probably hasn't been good since the Brad Smith days. Shout out to Brad Smith.
Yeah.
For a mid-round pick, I don't really have a problem with it at all. I just, a little bit slower. That's all right. I mean, they have the speed with JTS, so
he's going to win with power. That's how he's going to do it, and he's a powerful player. But he's got enough moves. He's got a good inside move. There's some tools there to work with. That I think the Buccaneers that come away with any one of these players would certainly bolster and increase their pass rush from the outside, and that's what they need. So they're going to have to invest at some point in time early in this draft, Matt, on an edge rusher, just to safeguard themselves in case Shaq Barrett does not come back to anywhere close to 100%, or that Tryon-Shoyinka just isn't that guy they thought he was going to be. If you're going to do some investing, Matt, where would you do it? You do it at Muni Financial.
At Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you? Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it. All right.
Yeah. We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Don't go to Colorado. Go to Kansas State. Go to Iowa State. Go to Auburn. Go to Missouri. Get one of these pass rushers, man. That's what Todd Bowles needs. He needs another edge rusher to bring that pass rush. And if you need, the equivalent of a good pass rush from your financial advisor, well, why not get it from Muni Financial? They've got experience. They've got the production, folks. They've been doing this since 1980, all across the country. So not just in the Tampa Bay area, not just in the state of Florida, but all across the country. Muni Financial has been helping clients. Do what? Plan ahead so you can stay ahead. Managing your family's wealth means more to Muni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It's legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. 40 years of experience, folks. 40 years of production. Let Muni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Give them a call at 1-800-868-6864 or visit them on the web at immuni.com.
Speaking of finances, we'd be remiss if we didn't get to this super chat from Bill Johnson. Thank you, Bill, for this $5 super chat. Bill says, did Brian Branch run another 40 at Bama's Pro Day? Do you think there are any MJ Stewart vibes of not having enough speed to hang in the slot?
Yeah. He did not run another 40-yard dash. He stood by that time, which means that's probably about as fast as he was going to be. Most slot receivers are 4.5, 4.6 guys. I think that he can hang. Sometimes you play faster on grass, on turf, when you have the shoulder pads on, when the ball's in the air, than you do when you're running the track at Indy or your pro day. There's football speed and there's 40 speed. I think he's got enough football speed, and I think that his instincts make up for it. He's not a burner, though. He's not a super fast guy. One of the safeties we had in our latest mock draft in the 7th round, Brandon Hill, the fastest safety at the combine. The Buccaneers had a Zoom call with him, so there is some interest there. So that's another guy we've kind of told you all about. But a couple of other quick questions here before we get out of here. Hey, Scott, what about Andre Carter from Army?
No.
The kid from Army had 15 sacks. His junior year faced double teams. His senior year, due to Army height restrictions, he couldn't bulk up. Army kid would be a project, but he has the numbers. Matt, take it away.
We watched him at the Senior Bowl, and listen, I respect all of our military. It was disrespectful what the other players at the Senior Bowl were doing to our troops. He just did not do well. He got beat up at the point of the ball being snapped, whether it was 1-on-1, whether it was 11-on-11.
Yeah.
He got overmatched over and over again. And I don't know if putting on more weight would even really help him that much. I respect him, but I am not a fan. I don't think the Bucs should go
not a fan
anywhere near that.
Yeah. They did not interview him at the combine. They did not really talk to him much at the Senior Bowl. They didn't have to. They saw what he was. He is a player that has a long way to go. He's not a good athlete. He has length, and a day 3 project is really what he is. He is not anywhere close to being the player that he was hyped to be. And we saw him in some first round mocks like December, January, and all that. And it's like, no, not even close.
No.
Folks, I don't have a little catchy segue. That's not going to penalize us. I think we've had the best show we've ever had.
Yeah, we've had a great.
I don't have a little gimmicky segue to get into age rejuvenation. So I'm just going to play the video. Then I'm going to talk about age rejuvenation. We'll get out of here, okay?
As we age, our hormones decrease, both for men and women.
I was tired all the time, had no sex drive.
I was groggy.
I felt like I was 80 years old because everything hurt.
I came to age rejuvenation because I was tired all the time.
Bioidentical hormones has really made such an impact in people's lives.
I actually enjoy shopping now.
Got all my energy back.
Mind is sharp.
I feel like I'm 18 again.
It was perfect for me.
Get with age rejuvenation. Do it now. Don't wait.
Call Age Rejuvenation today.
Oh, man, yes. Age rejuvenation, folks. I can't talk about age rejuvenation enough. Why? Because with age rejuvenation, I feel better. And I'm going to turn 51. That sounds really old because it is. Later this month, on April 23rd. And I'm not excited about it, except I feel great. I feel better at age 51 than I felt at age 49 or 48. Because I found out I had low testosterone. That's normal. Most men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s have low testosterone. Get yours checked today at Age Rejuvenation. Sign up for a free, no risk, no obligation consultation at agerejuvenation.com. There's 5 Tampa Bay area locations to serve you, and you can save some money by mentioning Pewter Report in your first treatment. So it's a fantastic deal. Look younger, get rid of that mental fog, have more energy, attack your workouts. Age Rejuvenation.
And after you check out Age Rejuvenation, make sure you please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Pewter Report TV. Also, follow us on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pewter Report. And like I said, YouTube, Pewter Report TV. Have some videos out every day from the podcast, various clips that go on. So if you enjoy all the content, do us a favor, like and subscribe. Takes you 2 seconds. It's absolutely free. So just want to say again, thanks to everybody for watching the show. We appreciate all the interaction and the conversation that went on today.
Great stuff today, guys. Thank you, Pewter people.
For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.
Pass rush, baby.